Have you ever felt that knot of anxiety in your stomach? You know, that constant looping worry about the future? Well, if you have, this is for you. It's a feeling that can be especially tough for high achievers, where the pressure to succeed can sometimes feel, well, completely paralyzing.
We're going to talk about that draining, nonstop what-if thinking. It's that voice in your head, right? The one that's a genius at imagining every possible way things could go wrong, usually when you're trying to sleep at 3 a.m. So, to really get a handle on this, let's meet a few people who might feel super familiar. First up, this is Kate. She's dealing with some very real and, let's be honest, pretty rational anxiety about her job security. I mean, the economy is what it is.
Or how about Tim? He really narrowed his focus, which is great, but now the pressure of getting into just one of those top-choice schools feels massive, and that obsession, it's starting to take over.
And then there's Carly. She's an entrepreneur, and she has poured everything she has into her dream. But now, that huge dream also feels like a huge, looming risk.
So what do Kate, Tim, and Carly all have in common? They're hearing the sound of anxiety. A good way to think about it is like having these hyperactive guard dogs in your mind, and they are constantly barking about every potential danger on the horizon. And as anyone with a noisy dog knows, it is absolutely exhausting.
And what's the advice we always get? You know the drill. Be mindful, go for a run, meditate, take some deep breaths. Basically, do whatever you can to just quiet those barking dogs, right? To get out of that emotional brain.
But here's a pretty radical idea. What if we've been coming at this all wrong? What if the real key isn't to ignore the anxiety, but to actually harness it? To lean in and figure out what those dogs are really trying to tell you.
This brings us to a really fascinating and powerful cognitive strategy, and it's called defensive pessimism. It sounds kind of strange, but it basically means you prepare for the worst even if you have a great track record of success.
And this is the crucial part. This is not about just passively worrying and spiraling. No, this is an active process. You deliberately think through specific negative things that could happen so that you can create a plan to either stop them from happening or to deal with them if they do.
It all breaks down into a pretty simple 3-step process. First, you set deliberately low expectations. Second, you visualize these specific things that could go wrong. And third, and this is the most important part, you create a concrete, actionable plan to deal with them.
This is how you turn that vague, scary feeling into a simple to-do list. Let's say you have to give a speech. Worried you'll forget what to say? Easy. Make note cards. Afraid of getting a dry mouth? Put a bottle of water on the podium. Think you might spill coffee on your shirt beforehand? Throw a stain pen in your bag. See? Each worry becomes a concrete action. You're taking back control.
Okay, I hear you. You might be thinking, hold on, isn't this just a fancy way of saying you're a pessimist? And that's a totally fair question, but there are some really important differences.
Okay, let's look at the key distinctions. Simple pessimism, right, that often leads to inaction. You just feel helpless. Then there's self-handicapping, which is all about protecting your ego by creating excuses before you even fail. But defensive pessimism, that's totally different. It's motivated by a desire to achieve great things, and it uses anxiety as fuel for proactive, real-world problem solving.
It's also the complete polar opposite of another approach, strategic optimism. These folks set high expectations, they generally feel calm, and they don't spend a lot of time thinking about what could go wrong. They plan, sure, but only minimally.
But here's the kicker. This is the really validating part for all my fellow anxious high achievers out there. Research actually shows that neither strategy is necessarily better. Despite being wildly different, defensive pessimists and strategic optimists often achieve similar levels of success. It's just a different road to the same destination.
And get this isn't some new age productivity hack. The idea of preparing for the worst so you can perform at your best has incredibly deep roots in history.
We've got to travel way back in time for this one, about 2,000 years to be exact. We're going to ancient Greece and Rome to meet the philosophers known as the Stoics. These guys were the absolute masters of mental resilience and preparing for adversity.
The Stoics practiced this exercise they called Premeditatio Malorum. It's Latin, and it translates to the premeditation of evils. It's pretty much the ancient blueprint for defensive pessimism, the deliberate practice of imagining what could go wrong.
The Roman statesman and Stoic philosopher Seneca put it really bluntly. He said we should rehearse all the potential disasters of life in our minds. Exile, torture, war, you name it.
so that when challenges finally do show up, nothing can ever take us completely by surprise.
So what this all shows us is that anxiety itself isn't the enemy. It's actually a powerful source of energy. The goal isn't to get rid of it. The goal is to channel that energy away from just aimless worry and turn it toward productive preparation.
This whole strategy really boils down to one simple but profound shift in your mindset. It's moving from that passive, looping question of what if this happens to the active, empowered question of, okay, if this happens, what then? By asking what then, the people we met earlier can completely transform their situation. Kate stops panicking and starts networking. Tim stops obsessing and starts researching backup schools. Carly stops worrying and creates a financial contingency plan. They're no longer victims of their anxiety, they're in the driver's seat.
This is the essence of it, really. You gain a sense of control not by ignoring what you fear, but by facing it head-on with a plan in your hand. You're taking the steering wheel back from your anxious, emotional brain and putting your logical brain back in charge.
And that leaves us with one final thought. Take a look at your own life. What worry, what worst-case scenario is barking the loudest for you right now? And how could you transform that anxious energy into a concrete, empowering plan of action?